Hello and welcome to a new episode of Experiencing Infdev Plus. And in this episode, we are going to do some exploring. That's because I would like to find some structures to show the changes that have been done to them. This should be somewhat easier compared to last episode where I searched for biomes. That's because I already found two of these structures in the last episode, or while I was working on it. So, uh, which is why I wrote down the coordinates so I know where they are. Also, one more thing that I'd like to mention is that in the last episode I've mentioned that this episode would have like a new name thanks to the rebrand. However, as it turns out, the rebranding of Infdev Plus will happen on June 30th, which will be after this episode gets released. The first thing that we're going to be checking out is the ocean monument, which, as you might be able to tell, is different. It was redone, however, some of the design elements sort of remain. You kind of got the sort of two arms with the sort of arches, got the arches in front of the entrance, and sort of thing at the top with the lights. And the monument is also somewhat smaller. Anyway, that's it for that. Now let's go inside. I've brought a white crystal to see if it would help me fight. Anyway, firstly we need to fight the boss for that. I think I'm gonna use the crystal to help me fight since I'm being attacked by the water elementals from all sides. I think though it's not too bad. I believe the way you access the boss through here. There's like a hole in one of the arms, and the boss is right here, right above the lock chest. And for some reason the crystals in it attacking it. That should be fine. So let's see what's the loot. Oh, nothing particularly interesting. I still got the mining fatigue. Also, one more change is that the ocean monuments now we've got chests inside of them, or you've got some valuable stuff that you can get. And the double chest is of course on the, well, in the other arm as well. And I shouldn't forget about the gold blocks that are in the middle. And here's what the ocean monuments used to look like. As you can see, they used to be a part of the vanilla ocean monuments, but with slight differences. Those being that you had chlorite blocks instead of the prismarine blocks. You had the spawners for the water elementals. Then you had you didn't have the sponge rooms, since you can get sponges by smelting corals. And there was only one boss, that being the blood, which was at the top of the ocean monument. So these changes mean that the ocean monument is now unique compared to vanilla, which is nice. Anyway, now I'm just gonna quickly return home and put away these items and then move on to the next structure. Another structure that has changed is the pyramid. As you can see, it has gotten smaller, just like the ocean monument, and the design is different. Also, you may notice that you no longer get the sort of mining fatigue. That's because the layout of the pyramid has changed. Previously, it used to be that the boss was at the top, however now the boss is at the bottom. And I'm gonna use the void crystal this time to make the fight easier. Like a lot easier. Although I probably didn't really need to do it. Anyway, let's check out the loot. We got some nice stuff. And I also forgot to mention that, well, we got all of these blocks now, which are guaranteed. And I believe the secret room that used to be below the pyramid was removed. It seems like we got quite a lot of gold from our journeys, which is nice. This vulture seems kind of confused right now. And I also shouldn't forget about the pots that are on the ground floor. As you can see, you can get some nice stuff from them. And above this room, there's nothing. Anyway, time to go. And here's how the pyramid used to look like. As you can see, it's bigger, just like I said. Anyway, if we go in the inside, we got a spawner room at the ground floor, just like in the newer design. Or in the older design, you used to go up to fight the boss. As you can see, this version still has the bug where two bosses spawn instead of one. And to get to the luck chest, we went up and you got like these valuable blocks here. And also another difference is that below this you used to have the secret room with a bunch of things that you could get. And also, just like I've mentioned in the last clip, you used to get mining fatigue because the bosses used to be above ground, which meant that if you didn't have the mining fatigue, you could just go directly towards them instead of going through the spawn room and fighting the mobs. Anyway, after that I have returned home and put away my things. That is because I would like to now check out the Crimson Dimension to see the changes that have happened there. And we'll be able to see the first changes if I use this diamond teleporter. That's because the Ashen Grassland biome has changed compared to how it used to be. As you can see, there's one right over there, so let me just get there. And here's how it looks. As you can see, the ground is made out of the bloodstone and the volcanic soil. And here's how the biome used to look like. As you can see, they used to have some crimson grass and some special volcanic soil with like different metadata to make sure the grass didn't spread onto the volcanic soil. And also you can see these trees, but I also believe they spawn generating the new version of the Ashen Grasslands. Right, over here you can see one of the trees that I was talking about, although this one is kind of only the trunk. Oh, and over there are some more. Anyway, another change has happened in the sort of witch dungeon. That the change being that this dungeon used to generate with letters, but instead this dungeon now generates with these chains. I believe one of the reasons why the letter was replaced with these chains is because if you view the letters from the wrong side, they'd become invisible. Also, it is good that this dungeon generated next to a basalt deltas biome. That's because I can show you another change, which is that the spikes that appear in the basalt deltas biome can now grow from the ceiling. This was an accident, but it was decided to be kept because it kind of looks cool, which means that now we kind of have like stalactites and stalagmites in this biome. Here's kind of a good example of a spike going from the ceiling. Another change that I'd like to mention happened to the graveyards that used to generate in clusters around a church in any biome, but now these graveyards only generate in a Soul Sand Valley biome. and they generate without the church. So you can just kind of randomly walk around this biome and find these. Here's one, and I believe I saw another over there. It seems like there are two of them, I think. Yeah, one over here and one in the back. And here's how the graveyards used to look like. These ones generated in the ground for some reason, so I had to excavate them using commands. But anyway, as you can see, they are kind of centered around a church, which for some reason didn't generate properly, but even despite that, you can see that it's just a part of the vanilla churches from the villages, or at least the older ones, I believe. Anyway, this one didn't generate properly, but if it were to generate properly, then it would have like a chest inside of it with some simple loot. And also, if you look at the graveyards, you can see they are kind of modular because they got like the obsidian bricks in the middle, so we can have the smaller ones or like bigger ones. And I think the new ones come in multiple sizes. And the last change that I'd like to mention is the Nylium trees, whose canopy was made to be smaller for the sake of performance, but it's kind of difficult to show. Aside from that, there are other trees that were changed, those being mahogany, mangrove, and the golden fir trees, whose appearance was entirely changed, once again for performance reasons. And here's how the trees used to look like. But aside from those things, there is one more structure change that I'd like to show you, that being a new structure called the igloo, which you can find inside of a tundra, or its variants, I believe. Now, the reason why I'm showing it in creative, it's because it's a somewhat rare structure, and I kind of had like trouble finding it even in creative. So yeah. Anyway, this structure is something that is useful to find if you are starting a new world, if you're like early in the new world. That's because you can find a workbench in it, a furnace, and a chest with some star items. Of course, these are only star items, so it's not really worth it looking for it once you are past early game. But yeah, this is the igloo, very simple structure, and unlike vanilla, there's like nothing they can find beneath it. And with that, I have covered all of the structure changes that I wanted to cover, and even some changes that I've forgotten to show in the previous episode. Anyway, now I'd like to show some other things that have changed, and the first is the fact that the snow layers no longer pile up during a sandstorm, which was something that used to be annoying. I believe at one point it could like cover quicksand or like the suspicious sand, which was quite annoying since if it covered quicksand then you could just walk into it. But there was change a while back so it wouldn't cover quicksand, but it could also cover the suspicious sand, which could make looking for it quite difficult. Anyway, I'm gonna use these command blocks to trigger rain. They should still work. And yeah. Well, I say that triggered rain, but of course the weather is biome dependent, so you've got like rain in the temperate biomes, you got snow in snowy biomes, and you got like sandstorms in sandy biomes, because this is no way to do it. And show the fact that the sand layers no longer are here. I'm gonna remove the sand layers that are here. And here you can see that no new sand layers are appearing, despite the fact that a sandstorm is happening over here. But you can still get the sand layers by crafting them if you want to. Another change is that the Mesa caves have been made to be more interesting. Their surface is now covered with red sand and forest dirt. Now, if I remember correctly, the Mesa caves were kind of back and forth because in 0.3, when the Mesa was added, well, the caves weren't all that interesting. They were still like the Infdev caves. But then in 0.4 they were updated, since 0.4 was the cave update, and as you can see they used to look pretty similar to how they look now, except for the fact that they used to have like red sand in the ground instead of the red sandstone. You could still find the red sandstone there, and as you can see, some cactus and boulders made out of iron clay. Although I'm not sure if these two things still generate in the new caves. After that I went into some 0.5 chunks, and seems like during this time the floor of the cave, or the caves themselves, resembled the surface, because the floor is covered with the red sand and the hardened clay. The ceiling doesn't really have anything to it. But in 0.6 they were made to be uninteresting again, or rather not unique. And they remained like this for a while after that. The snowy woodland biome also received a small change, that being the fact that the large oak trees were replaced with the large ancient oak trees, just like with the woodland biome, which this biome is based on. And the last change that I want to show you is the addition of cave maps, for which I decided to go over here, since I have the beacons here. To get the cave map, you first need to draw a map, and I think I'm gonna draw one over here. Then I'm gonna zoom it out, which you don't really need to do it, but I think it will be better for me. And then you need to combine the map with a compass. So let's see. Yeah, this gives me a cave map. And as you can see, the cave map is showing kind of the blocks that are at my level. And it gets updated whenever I go higher. Anyway, let's see if I can find anything interesting using it. I think I'm gonna dig down over here and see if anything interesting appears on the map. It seems like I found a ravine, which we can also see on the map. Anyway, I'm gonna jump down. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's something to do on the map, something that looks interesting. I'm gonna try to highlight it while editing this video. Anyway, I think I'm gonna try to head over to the blue thing to see what it is. And as it turns out, the blue thing that was on the map is a geode, which is quite lucky. Anyway, I don't feel like digging it out right now, so I'm gonna do it another time. I know the coordinates, so it's fine. Anyway, now I'm gonna try and continue digging down to see if I find anything interesting. And I believe a mine shaft as well, because on the map you can see kind of a tunnel which goes kind of straight and is kind of unnatural. So I'm gonna try to reach it. And here's the mine shaft that I've noticed on the map. As you can see, it has these cobblestone blocks because it was generated in an older version. That it is a mine shaft. But I'm gonna keep digging down. I would like to get all the way to the bedrock to see if I find anything more interesting. Once I'm done to bedrock, I'm gonna go home if I don't find anything interesting. And I did find another interesting thing on the map, that being a flip gate. I found it because I've noticed that there was kind of an empty circle on the map. So I decided to go over to it to see what it is. Well, kind of work this, but I decided to go over to show you the slipgate. So yeah, that was the cave map, an item that would be quite useful if you use it well, since you can use it to find geodes, mine shaft, slipgates, and maybe other stuff like dungeons. As it turns out, there is actually one more thing which I hadn't shown in the previous episodes, which is the fact that the Astral flowers, those being the white tulip, frost flower, and the pink tulip, now have got large variants. So I'm gonna replace these, which I had hand built, with the new large flowers, and I'm also going to fix the flowers in this area, or at least some of these that need fixing. And now the crimson flowers, those being the torch flower and the wooden ring rose, didn't receive a large variant. Also, the reason why the stems of some of these flowers are yellow petals is because these flowers were either built or grown before the flower stems became a wood type. Anyway, I'm gonna now gather these yellow petals using a Paladin X. That's because that's what you need to collect them, since it has Silk Touch. You used to be able to collect them using a hoe, but we can't do that anymore. Simply removing these flowers that I built is kind of sense in there, part of the history of this world, so I'm going to rebuild them somewhere else. Also, the fact that new large flowers were added means that new colors of the flower petals were added, those being the pink petals and the cyan petals. One last thing that I'd like to mention about these is that there were plants to make them generate inside of the Astral dimension, but in the end they don't. One of the reasons being that the flower stems kind of stand out with the color of the Astral grass. There were also other reasons, technical stuff. I can't remember exactly what, but yeah. Now, moving on, we got the crimson flowers that I need to fix. And next up, I'm gonna be fixing the torch flowers. I'm gonna need to replace the petals, and for it I can use an actual torch flower as a reference. As you can see, it's got some sort of yellowish white pixels at the bottom, which I kind of represented using the shroom lights. And there are these yellow pixels, which used to be there where the red petals are. And then we got the orange pixels, which means that there were some orange petals where the white petals were, and at the top are some red pixels, which means that at the top there need to be some red petals, which are now purple petals. And we're just gonna go up and start replacing those. And there we go, the torch flower is full restart. And now I'm gonna move on to these flowers, which I'm gonna regrow. And while doing that, my Paladin X actually ran out of durability, so I'm going to repair it. And also put some unbreaking on it. And with that done, I'm now going to rebuild the flowers that I had destroyed. So first the frost flower, for which I'll use cyan clay, since that's what I used when I first built it. So that was the frost flower, and now the pink tulip. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to recreate the overworld flowers that were broken. But I don't need to recreate all of them, as I already have some of them. Or rather, I simply need to fix some of them, as I, for example, have this, which is the what used to be the yellow dandelion. So let me just quickly fix it. Although I had another like dandelion here. Anyway, next up is this one, which used to be a petunia. And after that I went ahead to rebuild the other overworld flowers. And I also planted the daisy over there because I've noticed that I was missing that, because I kind of forgot about it. Well, now I'm going to fix the other flowers that are here, like for example this one is supposed to be kind of a different version of a dandelion, but now it has like red petals and white petals in it. But I'm not going to fix all of the flowers here, since some of them look kind of cool after the box were changed. Like for example this tulip, which is now dark gray. Not sure what color it used to be, but I think it looks cool now, so I'm not going to be fixing it. That should be good enough for now, which means there is now time to move on to the last thing that I would like to do in this episode, which is to fix up the Crimson Room, because it doesn't look how it's supposed to. And to do that I'm gonna need to do like a whole bunch of steps. Firstly, enable the fire resistance beacon. This will help me when building. Then grab some shears. Use those to get some nylium roots. The more the better. Then get some nylium caps. And help architects as well. And I also want some obsidian to make obsidian bricks. Then I need to grab a carver, some basalt bricks, and some blockstone. And now I should have everything. And I've also brought a chest so I can put away things, that way I don't have a cluttered inventory. Anyway, to start off, I'm gonna first get rid of some of the clutter, so that these things don't get in my way, like these thermite blocks and these vines. There we go, much better, which means that now I can move on to fixing things. And I think I'm gonna start from the back, which means that this is the first thing that I'm gonna fix, and for it I'm gonna need to craft some basalt brick slabs. Then I need some obsidian brick walls. I also had to grab some volcanic soil since I need to fix this thing. Then there's the tree, for which I think I'm going to try to replicate the new shape. This should be good. Oh no, I just need some grass and plants over here. And then there's the mini fortress for which I need to craft a whole bunch of obsidian panels. Obsidian panels that I crafted the wrong thing. I wanted some stairs. And the rest I'm gonna turn into panels. And then there's this part of the room, which is supposed to represent the Ashen grassland, which was changed. Then I'm going to change this as well, and to start I'm going to replace this wall, dirt with blackstone. And I'm gonna replace the crimson grass with volcanic soil. Then I want to rebuild the Nylium tree. And lastly, I want to rewrite the plants and stuff. I almost forgot about the Soul Sand Valley, which was also updated. And now I'm done, and this room is fixed. Well, almost done. I still need to take care of all these things and just put them where they belong. Aside from that, I am done with this. Anyway, that will be it for this episode, as I believe I had done enough, and I believe it is long enough. As for the next episode, I kind of got an idea as to what I like to do, which is that I would like to work on the basement, which has been kind of neglected. I got an idea as to what I like to do, but I haven't yet decided if I actually want to do it in the next episode, which will likely be shortly after the rebrand, so sometimes at the beginning of July. Anyway, you'll see this world before then, since I still got the screening posts where I'm like fixing this world. But yeah, those are the future plans. Anyway, that will be it for now, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.